make of the Crows on Friday night?
Well, we have a high level of respect for Adelaide, not just because of the way they performed last year, really were, in a lot of ways, only a bit of bad luck out of being a finals team, and showed the capacity to really push some of the best teams in the comp. And we know that they're a formidable opponent at home as well. But aside from all that, James Riley's come across after spending 3 years at the Crows and holds them in very high regard. So, we just don't see any reason to think that it won't be a really challenging game on Friday night.
Has James given you a bit of inside intel about how the Crows play, and do you think they'll help you on Friday night?
No, I think that stuff tends to be a bit overplayed. Well, I think the bottom line is he's a very good coach, but whatever happens, we won't be coming away. I think it's actually a little distasteful as well to be saying pre or post game that we've got all this inside information, and it's a little disrespectful to the quality of the coaching across the competition. There's not much, that good coaches can't work out through watching the games these days. So, yeah, maybe a little bit at the margin helps, but the same goes for Sean Grigg at the Gold Coast, and there are coaches that have moved all around the competition. The IP is flowing freely.
They've got a few key defensive injuries. Would you maybe look to bring in Shannon Neal, who was pretty close last week, you said, to playing?
So what was the first bit? Why would we do that?
They've got some key defensive injuries. Would you look to bring in Shannon Neal potentially to expose?
Who are their injuries? Are you thinking Butts with the ankle?
Yeah, and I think a couple others on this line.
Yeah, so Murray isn't available, hasn't played. So I tend to think that it won't be that different from last week for them. That might be that one goes out and another key comes in. They still have other options. So it's probably not the way we're thinking that we would look to exploit that lack of, I won't say height, but key position depth. And more likely that if we played Shannon, it would be because he was really close last week, and it's a structure that we definitely want to explore at some point. So that is in our thinking. But again, I'm probably over-indexing on it not being because we see any weaknesses in the way Adelaide's set up.
Do you have to plan in case Adelaide brings Tex back this week? Is that something you're thinking about now?
Oh, just expecting to play. Yeah, I think he had a back spasm. It's kind of the communication that I got, which kind of happens, and they tend to keep you out for a week, so we would expect that he would play.
I know training's happening now, but how's Tanner looking at the moment? Any inkling about how he's...
Yeah, I'm actually very confident that he'll play, but like with a lot of these injuries, it's not something that I get into the weeds on. I tend to get that final decision from the decision makers, and it's rarely me. When it comes to the injury one, he'll be given the green light to play, or if he's definitely out, we won't take him at all. But there's no indication that and I know we've sort of said that he's a test. What I think you should read into that is we just need to triple check that he's okay.
Those other injuries.
Try to make sense of any of that.
A few other injuries to younger players. How disappointing is that for those younger guys in their first season at the Cats?
Sorry, I missed the start of your question again.
That's okay. The few injuries to the younger players on the injury list last night, Joe Burke, Mitch Edwards.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A bit disappointing in their first season.
Well, yes and no. If you're going to get injured, it's better off being early in your career when the likelihood of you walking straight into a seasoned AFL team is a bit lower. And they're both long-term prospects for us. You know, Joe's really a basketballer who's come via our Category B program and has a lot of developing to do, and some of that development can happen while he's managing this injury. And Mitch is a highly talented, in our opinion, big ruckman who is going to take a bit of time, and you can kind of reference Toby Conway if you wanted to think about how we're approaching Mitch. We're not going to rush him back to playing, and in fact, even VFL footy at this stage is not the priority for him. His priority is building some resilience in his body so that when he does start playing, he can play consistently without being required to come out too much.
So aside from Tanner, you don't expect to see any changes really for the clash with the Crows?
No, injury-wise, availability-wise, we're in pretty good shape. So, I mean, as I reference a lot, and we'll continue to this year, we don't think of our best 22 or 23 in any given week. We tend to take a bit more of a squad mentality and look at how we'll use that over time. So it's not to say we won't make some changes, but they're not forced changes at this stage.
Will Sean Manor come into the mix a full game after a pretty impressive cameo at the end there?
Yeah, it was good to see. So yeah, he's definitely in the mix.
Can you run us through Tom Stewart's impact? I must admit, I was quite surprised to see it's only 150. It feels like his impact's been 250. It's just the way he's come in.
Yeah, well, he's certainly done a good job in 150 games. I don't know how many All-Australians he's got now, but it's a lot. But it is an interesting point you bring up because it feels as if he's been around a lot longer. And I don't think we should ever forget the way he came into the system. The reason he's only played 150 games is because when he was 20, he didn't really have any designs on an AFL career, and he came in, through the local system, through the VFL system, kind of did it the hard way. But it's an interesting case study of a guy who at 18 or 19 probably didn't feel either the motivation or the preparation to walk on to an AFL list, but when he just was that little bit more mature and ready, he was able to come in and have an impact right away, which Andrew Mackey's in the room, I shouldn't give away too much of the way we think about list management, but it is an interesting case study. They don't all have to be straight out of year 11.
How much thanks do you have to Stephen Wells and the Category team for getting when they did?
Yeah, I mean, Wellesley takes all the credit on these ones all the time, but it wasn't just him on this occasion. I would go back as far as Matty Scarlett having a little bit to do with him at local level, and I remember my reaction when he said, this guy could play AFL footy now. And again, it's a reminder that there are some good players out there if you look hard enough.
Do you think Stewart's really paved the way for the Manners and those types to never give up?
I think it helps. Yeah, it's not. It might be just underrating Stewie's natural talent a little bit. It's not as if he's a scrapper who's just worked his way into it. He's got some rare attributes, not just physical attributes, but just the feel for the game, the intangibles that are hard to coach. But yeah, I think as a general rule, if you don't get drafted in your first opportunity, there's a bit more of a willingness now to try to pick guys off, and they tend to be, if you can do that, they tend to be really good value because it's unlikely you're going to have to use your first pick on them.
After watching the tape back from the Saints win, what more did you glean from the win?
Quite a bit. Not so much that I'm prepared to talk about publicly, but I think everyone's on a learning curve early in the year, and we knew to an extent what to expect from the Saints. We rate them as a really good team, and that's given us good preparation, I think, going into another game that's going to be hot, good opposition. So I don't think we'll be coming away from the round 2 game thinking, we just weren't prepared for the heat. We know what's coming. There are a few parts with our game that we're looking to tweak a little bit. We saw some good signs, but it's always nice when you come away with a win, but see plenty of areas for improvement. And again, without going to the specifics of those, we'd like to think our players and coaches are pretty clear on those areas now.
Quite a strong midfield group at the Crows. How do you try to quell their influence? Dawson, Laird and Matt Crouch, obviously great 4 wins.
Yeah, they're very good players. They've got some depth in there as well with others, and I think they've done a pretty good job of adding some talent to their team over the last couple of years with either early picks or smart trades. Rankine plays a little bit in there, but I just kind of feel like that we could have this conversation every single week because the teams now, there's not a team in the comp that doesn't have a strong midfield, and we're going to confront those challenges every single week. So we want to just be a little bit careful that we don't get drawn into, Laird's a good player and Crouch is a good player and Dawson's a good player. We just got to make sure that we focus on enough on what we need to do. And we're really pleased with Jai Clark and Tanner Bruin, in particular as younger players in our midfield, and we think we're building something there, and it's not a sign of disrespect at all to not focus so much on the opposition, but it is a focus of ours to sort of build something that's more about what we do rather than having to adjust every week based on the opposition.
Chris, is there a balancing act to the time you give to your younger midfielders, ensuring there's enough experience and enough youth getting that opportunity at the coalface that you have to, but also ensuring that their bodies, developing, don't obviously get burnt out as well by the time that they spend around the footy?
I think that's probably true. We need to think about it a little bit with some of our bigger guys, the younger ruckmen in particular. We don't have a young midfielder in our AFL team or on the edge of our AFL team that's not ready to go in there and do the job against anyone. So no, we're not protecting them at all. And you might say, well, Jai Clark's only played 2 games, but he's had 18 months in our system, had a super pre-season, and he's in our team because we think he plays that role better than anyone else. And his role is a little bit different to some of the others, but it's not an exaggeration to say he is the best at it, and we don't need to protect him at all. And Tanner's, is he 4th year in the AFL system, 2nd year with us, first round pick. He's ready to go. Like, please check me if I say after a less than optimal performance that it was because we had a couple of guys who haven't had enough experience. That would be, that wouldn't be me telling the truth. It'd be disingenuous.
A lot of fanfare around Tassie, and we don't know exactly what their access is going to be and their ability to pre-sign and all that sort of stuff, and it's a few years away. But how do you see changing the landscape over the next 4 or 5 years as they prepare for their entry?
Well, I think the most important thing to do is understand what the rules are, and I'm not sure that anyone knows that yet. Even the people that will make those decisions, they're still sort of thinking through it. So the first thing is it would be a mistake to jump at shadows and try to forecast what the impact's going to be. But we have had a bit of a practice run with the expansion teams and the in GWS and the Gold Coast, so we've got some idea of sort of what the impact might be. So I don't think there's a club in the competition that should be kind of sitting there thinking we have got no idea how this is going to work. We have some idea, but obviously the devil's in the detail.